All righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports, presented by Filthy Games Room, located at 3479 Newtown Boulevard in St. Charles, Missouri, and by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It is August 28th. It is a scorching hot August 28th, 2024. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Carr. We got an amazing show in store for you this evening as World Series champion Adron Chambers will be joining us. Up until then, it'll be just a few minutes, in fact, until he will be joining us. Until then, I wanted to, and I'll bring this up with him when he's on, the St. Louis Cardinals, you almost are at the point where you have to stick a fork in them. And I think, that people have always said, you really have to hit them where it hurts, and that's in the attendance numbers. Well, that's kind of where the fans are at right now. We're going to talk about how you can get tickets for literally as low as $0 online. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. And on top of that, the Cardinals actually set a new record yesterday. 27,224 was the paid attendance, a new record low for Busch Stadium 3. On top of that, sources have said that as far as turnstile attendance goes, potentially less than 13,000 folks. Yeah, that is where we are at, and I get it. Yesterday, it was hot as hell. It was basically felt like 112 degrees outside. So I get it. My first pitch, scorching hot. This is the thing. The Cardinals are anything but hot right now. They are now 65 and 67. They are currently 10 and a half back of the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central. Right now, as far as the wild card standings go, it's not looking any more promising for the Cardinals. In fact, right now, the top three spots belong to the Arizona Diamondbacks, San Diego Padres, and Atlanta Braves. Meanwhile, you have the Mets at 3 games back, Chicago at 5 games back, the Giants at 5.5, and then the Cardinals down at 7 games back. Added in with the fact that they just designated for assignment Sean Armstrong, who was the gentleman that the Cardinals had traded away Dylan Carlson for. Yeah, not going to lie, it is not a good look one bit for St. Louis. So with all of that said, I'm going to bring on our featured guest for the evening. Well, before I do want to say, folks, that you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, and anywhere else you stream podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook, X, and YouTube at the Interstate 70 Sports Media platforms. You can also follow Roundabout Sports on its own Facebook page. And I do want to take this quick moment before I bring on Adron Chambers. I want to let people know that here at Roundabout Sports and at Interstate 70 Sports Media, mental health awareness is a core issue that we have here. And as always, I put up the NAMI helpline during the show. And for that, you dial 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It is the largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle. And of course, we put up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, that being 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, and you are just a phone call or a text message away. Everybody here struggles in life, but they shouldn't have to struggle alone. Eddie Jameson tuning in this evening. Eddie, thank you so much. And be sure to comment, folks. Questions, comments, anything you got, shoot them our way. We will try to get them all on the air. Thank you so much. Eddie, I know usually you tune in later than usual, so it's great having you on. But folks, okay, we're gonna cut to the chase now. It is time to bring on our special guest for the evening. He is a veteran in Major League Baseball. He was a World Series champion in 2011 with the St. Louis Cardinals. And he also has himself private lessons when it comes to honing your craft at the plate and in the field. And we're definitely going to be talking about that this evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure of mine to welcome to Roundabout Sports this evening the great Adron Chambers, ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, Doc? How you doing? Appreciate you having me on here, Jake.
It's an, it is an absolute pleasure having you on, man. How are you doing this evening?
Man, it's so interesting. I started back taking classes back over here at Pensacola State. And man, it's been a battle, man, trying to remember all this algebra and all this kind of stuff. But
Oh my God. So you're basically going after the stuff I was the worst at. Look, I
yeah,
was totally fine with math until the alphabet got involved. That's
right,
where it was for me.
right. So yeah, man, it was wonderful. I just got out of practice. I'm alive, I'm well, my family is okay. So for the most part, I'm thankful right now. So, yeah, man, everything is good. Again, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I do love the quote you actually had just posted earlier. It says, "You never know how tough it is until you're in it." I
Yeah, man.
absolutely love that, man. I know that's part of the things that I try to emphasize when we talk about mental health here on the show, as far as overcoming a lot of struggles. So, perseverance is a huge thing.
Yeah, and the crazy thing that you talk about that, the older I get, the more you realize. I never forget David Freese saying this, and it was after he played. He said, we tend to, like, after you play, you kind of, you know, take you kind of go back into those moments, you know what I'm saying, that
Right.
or like those World Series moments and those big game moments, and you kind of remember where you at, or think about where you were or how you were thinking. And I kind of tend, when you talk about mental health, I think a lot of that, is necessary. Being able to remember the positive about your life. You know what I'm saying? And I know for me, when it comes to, and the reason why I even wrote that is because of one of my favorite rappers, Zero. He says, you never know how to fly a plane. You can't tell me that you know how to fly a plane until you've been in the cockpit, basically. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, until you going through these moments, a lot of times you think you know what you want to do. You think you know the decisions you would make if something happened, but until it does, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times you never know. You know what I mean? So yeah, that mental health is real, man. And being that, I'm also taking a psychology class, so this
Oh,
is
the
also.
psychology is that I remember taking psychology and philosophy in college. Those definitely were two of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah, man.
Uh,
Yeah, baby.
Um, yeah, I loved it. I wanted to ask you. So you had mentioned, you know, about the private lessons. So what makes you? It's a great way to give back, especially during the summer. Granted, I mean, God, it's in the hundreds up here, so I can only imagine what it is down in Pensacola. Um,
The humidity.
Yeah, it's the humidity that's a killer, man. That's why out in Denver during the winter, when it's 0 degrees, it feels a lot better than it does out here when it's 0 degrees in St. Louis. So, yeah, I totally get it. But what made you want to give back and start doing things such as these camps and these lessons?
Man, that's a great question. Well, back in 2013, I did a camp. I did a camp just for the community, the athletes in my hometown, and even for the babies that never played baseball before. And I got a lot of the community. David Alexander, who was the chief of police back then. Jake Wood, who was the first black baseball player to play for the Detroit Tigers. Willie Horton, guys like that, man. I got to be involved and come out and help support. Even a lot of my friends came out to support, and I just seen a need. Matter of fact, right after that camp, I had so many people come up to me and ask me, you know, could I teach their son how to play baseball, how to hit? You know, everybody want me to teach their kid how to be King Gifford Jr., and that's the hard part.
You're
Uh,
right.
but for the most part, I should say, um, you know, it's really for me. Baseball was like it's more so the coaching aspect of it. Baseball was always, and football also was always the sports that I used to kind of help me get through my childhood. Uh, but I had great coaches. You understand what I mean? So I feel
Right.
a lot of my great coaches that I had, the Mike Halls, the George Blakes, the Barry Holidays, the Anthony Williams, like I had the Cables. I had so many great coaches that uh, the Beliches. Like I had so many great coaches that I feel like they planted a seed inside of me to where now I can go out and give a lot of these youths, these athletes, the knowledge that I got from them. And I mean I made it to the major leagues, so I kind of feel like a lot of that knowledge is useful. And at the same time, I always been like I felt like I was a great motivator. Even on that 2011 team, I I found myself to be more of a cheerleader than I were, you know, a center fielder. You know what I mean? I was more excited than David Freese when he hit the walk off. You know what I'm saying? So I always found myself to be like that guy that wanted to motivate, that wanted to help, and it just you know it was an easy transition, you know, after the game for me to just to go into, you know, coaching. And yeah, that's why I do it. I do it because of the people that did it before me.
Everybody seems to uh, play their role when it comes to a team, whether you are the starter, a backup, or even just kind of a platoon guy.
Yeah,
And you had mentioned it yourself. You had your role, and you said you're more of the cheerleader almost.
right.
But what did it mean to you to just be along for that historic ride back in 2011?
Oh man, another great question. I still remember Aldretti, who was one of our bench coaches. Man, he told me, he said, "Adron, you better be thankful for this moment because you might not ever get it again." And I say that because I didn't really, when I was young, when I was playing then, I was what, 23, 24 years old, first year in the major leagues. I didn't know how serious it was. You know, I didn't know how big, and that's our perception still, but I never knew how big the game of baseball was. You know what I mean? So I had guys like Rafael Fakal, Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols. They come up to me and they saying, Adron, I mean, I'm not hitting the home runs. I'm not making the diving catches, but they're reminding me that I am a part of this team. And it was because of the way I handled myself in practice. It was the way I handled myself in the locker room, in the dugout. These things were important, and they taught me that they were important. It's not just what you do on the field; it's how you are as a person, as a human. Can you learn how to learn different traits from your teammates to help motivate them? Can you be on time? You know what I mean? Can you be accountable? And then because of that, when I did get my moments to get in the game, I was so locked in and so focused. I felt like I was them. I felt like I was Albert Pujols. I felt like I was David Freese because we were all on one accord. And yeah, man, that it was a great feeling, not just winning the World Series, but being able to establish relationships that I was able to use in my life today. You know what I mean? I'm still able to use a lot of these principles from that World Series today.
Wonderful. We have a question now, actually, from Eddie Jameson, one of our longtime listeners, and he asks you, he goes, Adron, who did you look up to player wise when you were going through your younger years?
Oh man, I love questions. David Justice. David,
Ooh, Dave Justice.
yeah,
Okay.
David Justice was my all time favorite athlete. I mean, I wish, you know, I still wish one day I get a chance to sit down and talk to him. And the main question I'm gonna ask him is, you know, hey, what was going on with you and Holly Berry? You know what I'm saying? But David Justice was like that guy. He was like me almost. He was different. You know what I mean? Had a different swing, had a different game, but was very respected. You know what I mean? And
Right.
because of that, and he was light skinned too. But David Justice, man, was like that guy that, you know, I don't want to say he was ever under the radar type guy because he played with some great teams, some great organization, great players. But he always stood out to me because how unorthodox his game was. You know what I'm saying? He was just different. And then I had Kenny Lofton. Kenny Lofton was another guy that I looked up to. And I mean, it's many. And then, but I have to add in my dog Rafael Fakal. You know what I mean? I was an Atlanta Braves fan, and being able to see him, you know, the Crime Dog, you know, all them guys, man. I was able to play next to Rafael Fakal. He was my shortstop, so I have to add him to the list. But man, I have a big list to be honest with you. But if I had to name a few, those guys were the guys that I really looked up to: Kenny Lofton, David Justice, and Rafael Fakal. And I kind of felt like every last one of them, I had a piece of their game. You know, I could hit the long ball if I wanted to. I was fast like Rafael Fakal, and I was smart in the outfield like Kenny Lofton. You know what I'm saying? So uh,
Right.
I can also add Juan Pierre to that list too.
Okay. So, okay, you mentioned Rafael Furcal.
Yeah.
So, a lot of players don't have the pleasure of working with somebody that they um, like grew up idolizing.
Right.
What was that like for you, being like, hey, here's a veteran player who now I have the chance to learn from along the way of en route to winning a World Series with.
Uh, the interesting thing was, you know, me being a rookie, what I learned early was to stay out the way. You know what I mean? I made sure that, you know, I knew what time Albert Pujols was in the cage. I knew what time Lance Berkman was in the cage. So because of that, because I paid attention to the little bit of details, I was able to get their respect. You know what I mean? So Rafael Fakal, a guy like him, a guy like Edwin Jackson, um, Arthur Rose, Corey Patterson, you know, they because they seen that I took, um, I was very, I don't want to use the word serious because I don't want to make it seem like I was going crazy in the dugout or in the locker room, but I was focused, and they seen that I was focused, so they wrapped their arms around me. They wanted to protect me. I never forget. I was in the outfield one day, and I practice like this all the time, and I tell my outfielders at Pensacola State the same thing. I was diving in the outfield for batting practice. I was diving, running in the walls. I'm talking about to break my neck in batting practice. And Tony La Russa loved it. You know, he loved me with that energy because it helped everybody else that was around me. They see when you see somebody work, a teammate, it's gonna make you want to work. So he loved it. But I remember Arthur Rose coming up to me saying, "Son, you gonna be tired before the game. You're gonna be tired before the game." So I was like, "Man, listen, I might not come in until the sixth or the seventh inning anyway. I got to see these fly balls." But they were always trying to help me. You understand? So being able to have
Right.
those guys like that, but it took me to show them that I was focused though, because obviously they got to focus on a game. So if I'm showing them that I'm not really interested in what's going on, they not gonna show any interest in me. So I was happy to be able to be around these older veterans that really helped show me the way. Man, we had a lot of young guys: Daniel Descalzo, David Freese, John Jay, Alan Crick. We had a lot of young athletes. So it was nice to be able to have those guys be able to show us how it was done, and we end up taking it all the way to the World Series.
Absolutely. You know, After that World Series, the you guys had a decent 2012 season, and then you made it back to the World Series in 2013. Um, you had a new manager at that time, that being former Cardinal catcher Mike Matheny. What was it like? What was the vibe kind of like working with Mike in relation to working with Tony?
The vibe was very much different. You know, you talking about a man that has been in the game for almost. I mean, I can say most of his life with Tony La Russa, coaching. You know what I mean? He's the second most winningest coach in Major League Baseball. He's probably seen all type of different eras when it came to the baseball, the steroid era, the earthquake. I mean, he probably seen so many different things. So being able to be with Tony, especially that last year right there, because he retired right after that season, he really was able to pour in that knowledge that I needed in my game. With Mike, uh, Mike was obviously it was his first year. Him being a catcher, he was very knowledgeable. He wanted all of our coaches to stay in shape because he stayed in shape. I never forget him telling everybody he wanted him to work out, and Lily Chris was like, "Bruh, get out of my face." Uh, uh, but Mike most definitely had the passion. You understand what I'm saying? He had the passion.
Yes.
I just think being able, just like Schilt, Mike Schilt, like the beautiful thing about Mike Schilt, and if I had to compare, I know you didn't ask me about Shilty, but if I
That's
had to
okay.
like compare Mike Matheny and Schilt, I think because Schilt was able to really, he would when I first got to St. Louis, Schilt was under Tony La Russa like a stepson. You know what I'm saying? Like he was around him 24/7, always taking notes. And Mike was more so Mike wanted to make a name for himself. You understand what I'm saying? So it was
Yeah.
actually kind of nice to see. And we had guys like Carlos Beltran, Lance Bergman. We still had a lot of veterans, so he really didn't have to do anything. And we still had that. We were still riding that 2011 season. After you win a World Series and you young like us, we think we can do anything in the world. You know what I'm saying? You got guys like John Jay, who became the starting center fielder. His confidence was so high that what Mike didn't have to come in and he didn't have to change too much. All he had to do was add in those pieces like Carlos Beltran. So yeah, man. Mike was phenomenal. I love Coach Matheny. You know what I mean? I love my skip, man. It was very interesting, you know what I'm saying? Me being a World Series champion and seeing Carlos come in and take that right field position. But, you're talking about somebody like that that's been playing for so many years, real respected in the game. I had to wait my time. I was happy to be a part of that. So it was tough for him to come in after winning the World Series like that. You know what I mean? It was very tough. So
Yeah.
I got nothing but love and respect for me. I was able to see him when we celebrated that 2013 season a couple years ago. So yeah, man, big shout out to Mike Matheny, man. I wish him all the best.
Do you feel you talk about the energy that's in the locker room of those years,
Yeah,
the ones with Tony, with Mike, and then even you talk about how you can tell with Schilt. Looking at the Cardinals now,
yeah,
you know, past couple seasons. Last year they lost over 90 games for the first time in my lifetime. I'll be 30 next year. So since about 1990, and they finished in last for the first time since 1990. You know, and right now, even though they're 2 games under 500, it's like the air is sucked out of the team.
yeah.
Where do you think that begins?
Oh man, uh, goodness gracious, I love St. Louis, so I want to make sure I say this correctly. Um, when we played, like I told you, when I got there, remember when I got there, we were 10 games out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We weren't looking at going into the playoffs. So, like I said, I never forget the day. As soon as I got there, when it came to me diving and running in the outfield, that was the first day I got there. And Tony Russo brought me into his office and he told me, don't stop doing that. See, we hadn't started winning yet, but he told me not to stop doing that. And I kind of feel like that's where my part on the team kind of came, that energizer. And it woke everybody up. I kind of felt like that's what happened when Tommy Pham got there. When Tommy Pham got there, it was like an energy that we needed. You know what I'm saying? It was like a spark that we needed. Um, when it comes to the locker room now, I would love to go back and talk. Ali and I played with each other in Palm Beach, um,
Okay.
and a couple other places he and I played. So he's a great teammate of mine, a great man, great coach. You know, he won obviously in the minor league level, and even he's winning now.
Right.
It's just I really believe that you can't. It can't just be all on his back. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he might have
Right.
a piece of the pie with his antics and how he handles, the media and everything. But you have to have somebody that comes in to say, you know what, bump all this, man. We finna make this thing right. And I don't know. You know, I look at Goldie, I look at Arenado, great, phenomenal athletes. You know, I'm pretty sure they're going to, make their mark, or they already made their mark in the game. But the history of the game, they're going to be able to, be recognized for a very long time. Um, it's just, I don't feel like that spark. And even when it gets lit, it's like it goes out. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. It's hard to speak on it. Obviously, the fans aren't happy. You know, you've been seeing the attendance. Mo, it's I appreciate Mo for adding me to the roster, but you also got to understand when I was there, Tony La Russa was basically running things while I was there. You know what I'm saying? Like he was the big boy,
Right.
he was the guy with the experience. After Tony left, things start, and people I've been seeing it on social media. They've been asking, when did the turnaround for the Cardinals start? And I felt like it started when I left. You know what I'm saying? When I left the St. Louis Cardinals, that's when everything turned
Never
around.
take
So
it personal, though. Never
yeah.
take it
No,
personal.
no, 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 no. So it's like I'm always eager to get back to St. Louis because I know what St. Louis did for me. You know, I remember coming out of that tunnel, coming into the into the dugout and seeing the fans right there. They were always nice to me. They was always kind to me. Whenever I left out into the city, people were always kind and always nice. And I always embraced that. I embraced the love of the game of baseball. And I'm just eager to know, like, is I know we doing a lot of charity work. I know we're doing that, but I just want to, are we embracing the city of St. Louis when it comes to baseball? Not just with wins on the field, but using their energy, using their love for the game. I seen a 100-year-old lady jumping for joy when we won the World Series. You know what I'm saying? So that's like a
Right.
that's like a spark for me that I use people. You know what I mean? Obviously, like I said, I was an energizer. I use it. I use other people's energy. I would like to see that in St. Louis now. I would like to see somebody like myself be able to come over there and just energize the people and let them know that. And obviously, we live in a different day and time with technology and all this type of stuff. St. Louis winning the World Series is a big deal. I know I'm talking a lot,
Absolutely.
but it's a big deal. So, the expectations have been high. The last time we won it was in 2011. The last time we've been back is in 2013. So the expectations are very high. I'm just looking for. I would love to talk to Ali. I would love to be in St. Louis, just to sit down and not talk business, but talk relationship. You know what I'm saying? Talk, you know, how are we approaching just our everyday experience? Forget the wins, forget all of that. How are we attacking the day? Are we worried about, trying to last, 4 years in a game? Or are we playing for today? And I think that was the difference from that 2011 season. We played every single game. That game is what matters. And I don't know if you remember that happy flight saying. We said happy.
Yep.
It was happy flight for that game. You understand what I'm saying? It was for that game to be able to fly home happy. You know what I'm saying? To be in a plane happy. So it wasn't. We weren't looking 10 years down the line. We was looking at today, and that's what I feel like is needed in St. Louis is for play for today, and we'll worry about tomorrow.
I absolutely agree. Folks, you are tuning in right now to Roundabout Sports. I am the Maestro Jeremy Carp alongside World Series champion, former Cardinal, Adron Chambers. Folks, we're going to take a quick station break right here while I do a plug for our amazing sponsor, that being Filthy Games Room. Filthy Games Room is located at 3479 Newtown Boulevard. That is 3479 Newtown Boulevard. They are open Wednesday through Saturday from noon to 8 p.m. They have the largest selection of retro and modern video games in the St. Louis metro area. They have sealed consoles, they have retro and box consoles. They have, hell, they just have the boxes themselves if you want to complete a collection, and they have consoles without the boxes. But on top of that, they got thousands of video games ranging from the Magnavox Odyssey back in the 70s, for all you really retro gamers out there, to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Nintendo Switch generation, of course. And in the front entrance, you also have multiple pay or free to play arcade machines such as Asteroids, Millipede, Double Dragon, and Marvel vs. Capcom, among others. So be sure to tune in and head in to Filthy Games Room, located at 3479 Newtown Boulevard in St. Charles, Missouri. The man running the operation, Mr. Ben Bizzle, this is a passion project becoming a reality for him. Meanwhile, speaking of passion projects becoming reality, you got a guy hosting a podcast and a man who loves baseball and became a baseball player in the major leagues. Now, if that ain't a passion becoming a dream come true, I don't know what is. Also, we got Alex West tuning in saying Pensacola in the house. And we got Jimmy Harris Sr. from the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame tuning in as he always does. Dear friend of mine, thank you so much, Jimmy, as always. So, Adron, I want to say this. I talked at the top of the hour about dwindling attendance, and yes, it has been a bit of a late season heat wave here in St. Louis. But even then, we're talking paid attendance is 27,000. Now, like I had said, sources have indicated that turnstile attendance might be 13,000. Now, you go west on the western side of Missouri, the Kansas City Royals are currently tied for the division lead in the American League Central a year after losing 106 games. And yet they struggle to get 20,000 to 25,000 fans in the seats. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's obvious. The fans aren't happy with the way things are going in St. Louis. I think the bigger question is, to me, is what are we going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we going to do about this? Because at the end of the day, like my man, Mr. Cadillac of Pensacola, he say, we got to put heads, in the beds. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
we got to get butts in the seats. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are you going to do about it? And going back to what I said earlier, I mean, just like anything on this earth, man, you need a spark. You have to have a spark. You have to have some type of renewal, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying anybody has to leave St. Louis. That I'm not gonna say I'm a big fan of having to get rid of anybody, because I know that was one of mine. That's what happened to me. I had to leave St. Louis and go somewhere else. I really just believe that we have to be open-minded about the way we are operating, the way we are communicating, the way we are, you know, we need to listen more, and not just listen with our ears, but listen with our heart. Like, what are we really trying to accomplish right here? We trying to get good baseball on the field. What are we hearing? I mean, like, the game hasn't changed much. Yeah, the pitch clock, and I don't even mean that type of stuff. But when it comes to the competitiveness, what's necessary for the game of baseball is competing. You have to compete. That's whether you competing in the front office, whether you competing on the field, whether you competing in the locker room, whether you competing, at home with your families. And what I mean by that is, always working on trying to be the best person that you can be. I really feel like we just have to be open-minded and get back to the basics. You know what I mean? I love Ozzie
Right.
Smith. I love Ozzie Smith because every time I see Ozzie, every time I see Willie, they keep it very simple for me. They know that I don't like algebra. You know what I'm saying? I don't like complicated things. They keep it very simple. And I think a lot of times we make things so complex to where not only is the person we trying to deliver the message being getting confused, but we're confused ourselves because we're trying to make it so, harder than what it is, man. I think this is a very simple thing. I know a lot of us and a lot of our fans are tired, and it's becoming like very noticeable around baseball. It has been noticeable around baseball, but I think it's a inner uh, it's an inner family problem. It's something that we can really fix. And I think if we get to that, man, I think things can change just this year. I mean, remember, we were 10 games out. We were 10 games out. I got a September call up. It's not September yet. A lot of crazy things can happen, but we got to be willing to be open minded and go to work. We got to be willing to put in the work and put our egos aside, man. Stop worried about money. Stop worried about things that don't matter. What matters is getting people to sit back in those seats. And St. Louis, I never forget this. And I know I talk a lot, but that's why you brought me on.
You're exactly. You're good, man.
Chipper Jones came to St. Louis. I think it was 2012, and they gave that man. He was for the Atlanta Braves, and they gave that
Yep.
standing ovation, dog. A standing. I never seen that in my life to where they gave the other player from another team. You would have felt like he played for the St. Louis Cardinals. I
They did
say
that for Jeter too when he played in St. Louis for the last time. When Jeter came in the Yankees.
that shows character. That's character within that stadium. We have to give the people character. We ain't giving them character. We making excuses. We putting our hands up trying to say, well, woe is me. What did I do? Take responsibility. Even if you didn't do anything, take responsibility because you're a part of the family. And if you do that, I promise you things will turn around.
Looking at the team now, and I'll say this, look, it could be a lot worse. Right now, it is August 28th. The Chicago White Sox are 31 and 102. So
That's
like you said, you said it ain't even September yet. You're right. It's not even September, and the White Sox have lost 102 games. So it could be a lot worse.
a lot worse.
Um, I will say this, and obviously when a team is struggling, especially a team like the Cardinals, who, like you said, the expectations are always high.
Yeah.
We are a franchise built on sustainable winning,
Yes.
you know. Um, and while last year was just dreadful, and this year has been dreadful, there have been a lot of bright spots,
Yes.
noticeably coming from a lot of the young guys that we have in the lineup. Mason Wynn, for example,
Big one.
Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan.
Yes.
There are guys, and Michael Ciani before he got injured. You know, when you look at these guys, do you see the long term future of what can be a sustainable winning Cardinals team?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to, and this is why. Not because they're not great ball players.
Okay.
I love watching win. I just don't want, and I feel like they did that to my man uh Walker. They put
Jordan Walker.
they put so much on his shoulders that, man, you trying to get a young, the organization is already big enough. So it ain't like him going to a smaller organization and having to be the man and represent, because they might not be able to hold it anyway. So he's going to still be hidden. When you in the St. Louis Cardinals, you doing things like that. They're going to start doing things like comparing you to Albert Pujols, and they're gonna compare you, win to Ozzie Smith and all that kind and yada yada. I feel so bad about the catcher. What's his name?
Well, are we talking about Contreras or
Yeah,
Herrera?
he
Oh,
came up. And
Oh yeah.
God left. It was like everybody was like, he has to be like Yachty. And that, I understand why they would do that, because we are known for these great, phenomenal athletes. So I don't want to put that much pressure on them. Do I think that they can be a part of something real great? I mean, Win is showing you, man. The dude is phenomenal. Donovan, I remember meeting him when I came back for the ceremony. Man, these guys. Matter of fact, if Willie McGee gives you a compliment, but love for you. And Willie McGee gave that man a compliment. So I ain't got nothing but love for him. We have the great, we have the ability to be a great team. Like I said, it's just the spark. I look at Goldie sometime, and he seemed like he's so. I never got a chance to meet him. He seemed like he's so quiet. You know what I'm saying? So laid back. And when you look at when I remember my first base, even Alan Craig, they were vocal and more outgoing and more, you know what I'm saying? So it's just that spark. And it's nothing against Goldie. I don't know Goldie. If I seen him right now, I would say the same thing. Nothing against him. I just
Right.
I do feel like it's the spark. And we're asking for our young guys that's playing. See, me, I was the spark, but I was on the bench. You know what I'm saying? I was over there. I was chilling on the side, so I could do all the screaming and yelling, and I was able to see. I remember one game I was able to see David Freeze, and he was down a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, bruh, hey, let's get this thing together. I don't know what you doing over here," and that's how I talk to them. I'm eager to know how they communicate in the locker room. I never forget, and I use this story all the time with Arthur Rose. We were in the locker room, and Arthur was talking about his curveball to Jason Mott, and I think Chris Carper was in there. He liked to sit down. He used to play that little game. I don't know, back when you had the iPad, when we used to, I don't want to say the start of the iPad, but it was in 2011, right? So it was a while ago. You had that little game where the guy was in a truck, and you would have to press go, and he was trying to get over the little humps or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
He loved
Like,
that game, right? But he was over there talking about the girl about playing that game, and I turned around. I'm a rookie. I just got it. And I turned around at him and looked, and I said, Arthur, man, would you stop talking about that curveball, dog? I will hit that shit over the moon. You know what I'm saying? That's how I was, though. I was talking to these guys like that. And they made it comfortable. They allowed me to do that.
oh man.
They allowed me to be myself and be free and talk noise. But I was also the first one out there in batting practice. I was also the first one at the field. I showed them that I wanted to be there. And because of that, it loosened everybody up. And I feel like that I can only imagine if I was with Goldie right now, I would have that man hitting 300, 330. He's a great hitter. I would have it
He
because
is. He's an
I don't
MVP.
I don't just think about myself. I know I'm not gonna hit the home run. I'm gonna hit the single, get the walk, hit by pitch, maybe a double. I need you go to hit me in. I knew my role, and I feel like that. Like I said, that spark needs to come to be able to talk some noise to people and say, "Hey, man, let's get this shit together. I don't know what we doing out here, but we need to fix this right now. We need to fix." And that's what we did in that locker room. Like we had a problem, we addressed it. You know what I'm saying? We were not just going to chapel and we were going to chapel most definitely, but we were also keeping it 100 with each other. You know what I mean? We kept it
Yeah.
real. Ron Terrio, we had Ron Terrio to right, like we had Nick Punto, the shredder. We ripping jerseys off in the middle of the field. When I see them hit walk-offs, it don't even look exciting sometimes. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't look like they're really excited. They're happy. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't look like that. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't
Exactly.
look like that. And I'm not, again, I think we have some phenomenal athletes on that field. I really do. But I really want to go back to St. Louis and just talk to the locker room, man, and just see where's our mind. I don't care about the record. I never, when I got there, I never cared about the record. I didn't even know who we were playing next week. I didn't care. All I cared was whoever was pitching that ball, whoever's in front of me, I'm finna dominate you. You not gonna beat me. And we took that mentality all the way on to the World Series.
There's a football coach, Kevin Stefanski. He's a two-time coach of the year, and his mantra is always. I see his post-game pressers all the time. His mantra is always like in the locker room. He says, "Go 1-0 every
Yeah,
week." That's all it is. He says he don't care about. They don't even. I love how, and of course, my favorite team, Cleveland, anyway. So there's my bias. But he always will say, he'll go, they don't even say the. He doesn't even say the name of the opponent. Like he doesn't say if you're facing the Rams or the Steelers. He's like, it don't matter.
Don't
Just
matter.
go want to know.
That's
Just
it.
go want to know. That's all you got to do. You
Tony
know.
Tony Russo said this. He said a few things that was just profound. He said, the team that gives away the fewest at bats. I mean, every time I come into that batter's box, I'm focused on every single pitch. The team that does that the fewest, or the best, I should say, that gives up the least amount of bats, is usually the team that wins the championship in the end. And I be doggone, dog. I never forget. Uh, 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 Dang, I can't even think right now. Nah. This is going. I come back to it later. But it was a situation in the game that happened, and if this doesn't happen, we don't win. The World Series. We don't
Oh
win
wow.
if this don't happen. And I never forget that. But it was so many things that was happening like that. If we go back and thinking about, you have all type of situations that go down. When you're talking about a baseball team, family situations, people being hurt, so many things. But it was certain things that had to happen for us. Now that I look back at it, that if this didn't happen, we don't win the World Series. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can't think about all this other crap. We got to take care of business right now. Right now is what all we got. We got our Pujols right now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think a lot of times we get into that phase, and it's just not the Cardinals. It's all over sports in general that we get so caught up into the luxurious luxuries of sports. You know what I mean? Having things, nice cars, big houses, which is a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I'm not the one to say that. I'm happy to see, a lot of these guys doing what they do. But when it comes to winning, when it comes to putting the butts in the seats, it has to be more than just about, the money that we raising. It got to be a passion. It got to be a love and an appreciation, a study. You know what I mean? A sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be a sacrifice.
And after your tenure in 2013 with the Cardinals, you bounced around a multitude of major and minor league clubs. I mean, kind of just take us through. I believe I know the Astros were one of them.
Yep.
I think they were actually the first team after the
Right.
Cardinals and the Blue
I
Jays and
would,
the Cubs. Just kind of take us through like how life was bouncing around after your time in St. Louis.
well, Coach Llewellyn, who was our manager over there at Pensacola State College, I actually was talking to his father yesterday, and I was telling him that after the World Series, man, I had such a big head. When we won the World Series, I was 185, 190 pounds. When I came back
Mm-hmm.
to spring training, I was like 212, 215 or something like that. I came back ginormous, right? So after that, even that was 2012 and 13. So I was still with St. Louis, but I never was the same player. So when I left St. Louis, I felt, to be honest with you, I felt a disloyalty. I felt like I did so much for this organization. From the minor leagues on up, I had to go through so much through the crazy coaches, seeing some of my teammates get released from the team, having to wait my turn, getting my opportunities. I didn't understand the business side of it. So when I left and went to the Astros, Jeff Luna was there. Don't get me wrong. I worked my butt off. I had a lot of injuries. I had already tore my ACL in college. I mean in high school. So I didn't even play my senior year of baseball in high school. I tore my ACL. So that was kind of like because of the weight gain, my knee was bothering me. And I never was the same. I never had the same excitement. And I'm not making an excuse because
Right. Oh,
that's
I get it.
but I just never had. I remember being with the Cubs, and if man, I forget my trainer's name back then. I never forget saying this to him. And I said this to a couple guys, but I said, I don't know if I wish I wasn't here. I was on the Cubs, and I was like, I wish I was. And I wasn't just saying on the Cubs. I just wish I wasn't in that mental space that I was in. I was such in a negative space in my life because, like I said, I felt like the Cardinals had betrayed me. So I did pick it up. I went back to camp. So I played with the Astros. I actually I could have made that team, and I ended up pulling the hamstring in spring training. That's when Dexter Fowler was over there, and Altuve. That's when the young Altuve was kind of chunky a little bit. Um, but I end up pulling my hamstring, going down to the minor leagues. Went to the minor leagues the very first game, and I never the lefty. What was his name? Saunders, pitcher for the Rangers. Man, I forget his first name, but he was pitching. I hit a home run the first game in the minor leagues, so I knew I was coming back. And that's when George Springer was
Oh, Joe
there.
Saunders.
Yeah, Saunders
Yeah.
pitcher lefty. Um,
Yeah.
so he was there. I hit a home run off of him. The next at bat, I hit a base hit. Uh, I think matter of fact, Correa was Correa there with us too. I think Correa might have been there. But I ended up stealing second base and breaking this finger right here. When I slid into the base, I broke this finger, and I wanted to play because I wanted to be in the major leagues. I didn't want to listen to nobody. Me and the minor league general manager, we got into it about my time, and they ended up sending me over to the Blue Jays. I played with the Blue Jays, but my hand never really healed. So I was over there for a year. Then I went with the Cubs. I went with the Phillies for a little bit. I came back, but I went to Canada and I ended up winning a championship in Canada with the Ottawa Champions. So I kind of felt like things were turning around,
Okay.
but I still didn't have the same. I didn't feel the same. I still felt betrayed by the Cardinals. You know what I'm saying? I really felt that they took something from me that I had earned. And again, that's my fault. I'm not blaming anybody. I just know that the love for the game wasn't there. I was playing it, but I just wasn't the same person. You know what I mean? I failed a couple of
Yeah.
tests. It's crazy now how they passed the marijuana legal, but when I was playing in the minor leagues, you couldn't smoke weed, so I ended up failing the drug test. So
Oh no.
it was a lot of things that was, and that was just it was just mentally draining, man, and it was just it wasn't my play. It wasn't the fact that I couldn't play. It was more so just how I felt. And again, that was like that transition of me going into coaching and things like that. So I was a little bit more interested in my life after the game of baseball, more so than trying to continue my career. And I was like Brett Favre. I didn't know when to stop. You know what I mean? I knew I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know when to stop. But I wouldn't say my career, was bad. I mean, I made a lot of great highlights,
You
with the
did?
what I'm saying? I made a lot of great highlights with the Astros, and I was able to play with the Singletons and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? The Johnson. So I was able to be around some guys that done great things. Eric Hosmers. I remember in fall league, I stayed with the Hosmers and the Derricks and I got great memories throughout my career, not just with the Cardinals, but with every team that I played on. I just and that's another thing that I remind my players now of, just taking being thankful for the moment, man. Like, go out there and kill it, because you never know when it's gonna end. You know what I'm saying? You never know when that last game is gonna be. And a good friend of mine, he passed away, Chris Fair. He used to text me every single day, even during the World Series. He used to text me every single day, and he used to tell me to play every game like it's my last. And when he would remind me of that, it just put a little spark in me. So, yeah, man, my career, I'm thankful. I wish I'd have played 20 years. I can't lie, but I'm very thankful, because I tell you what, man, winning that World Series, my name is still ringing around in the game of baseball, and I owe that to all of my teammates. I owe that to St. Louis. I owe that to the fans of St. Louis. I'm very thankful.
Yeah, I got a couple more questions for you before we wrap it up this evening. First, I want to just tell you how much a pleasure it is having you on. This has been absolutely fantastic, Adron. Like
Thank
I've had a blast. Um, the first question I have um, in this is, as a coach, what is perhaps your biggest core value that you instill upon your players?
Man, that's a great question. Man, I have it. I have the answer, but I have to add this part too. I've been taking
Yeah,
psychology. I've been taking psychology, man, and it's so interesting learning how selfish I could call myself. You know what I mean? Like in a lot of aspects of my life. You know, being a father, I have two babies. To their mother, you know, I can be very selfish. To my family, you know, I can be very selfish. So when it comes to like the coaching aspect of it, and a tangible that I kind of like, I want to make sure that I have is that I'm doing everything that I can to research what this athlete needs. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
I know that you hear it all the time that you know, you can't treat every player the same. I really take heed to that. You know what I mean? Because it's something special in every last one of them athletes. But if you're not doing your due diligence and paying attention and really seeking to use that good, you can kind of mess a player up. And I mean, don't get me wrong. What God got for us is made, is already set in stone. Sylvester Croom, who was my coach at Mississippi State, he reminded me all the time that, you know, you can't save everybody. You know what I'm saying? I really
yeah,
understand. You know, I really do understand that. But as a coach, for the ones that really do want to be there, for the ones that really do want to put that work in, I really try to pay attention to the needs of that athlete. I need to see, because sometimes it be the smallest detail that you can give them and it'll click and they just off to the races. You know what I mean? And that's, again, that's what I did with my teammates. I never forget one time uh I was on a bench and Jose Okendo was right next to me. And even having guys like Jose Okendo, like it was, oh my goodness.
secret weapon.
You know what I mean? And Chris Carpenter was pitching and he had threw ball one, ball two, ball three. And I yelled uh cheering wise, and I was like, you know, all right, Chris, let's go throw a strike. And he looked at me. He was like, and I was saying it like I was cheering though. I wasn't saying it like
Right.
I was mad. I was saying, but he looked at me. Okendo was,
Uh-oh.
hey, don't say that again. And I kind of looked at him and was like, you know, I was outgoing, so I always ask questions. I was like, why? Why not? I'm just cheering. He was like, you don't think he's out there trying to throw strikes? And I was,
Mm.
oh shit, yeah, obviously. Like, right? But it's like things like that, and like paying attention to things. So now I know I don't need to say that, because I had said that. That wasn't the first time I've ever said that to a pitcher. But being able to pay attention to the little bitty details, you know, it's something else that I can say that can kind of get him back on track to throwing strikes. But I got to figure that out. I got to be willing to dig and dive and search for those things for my teammates. And again, that takes work. And a lot of times when you're only focusing on yourself as a coach, you only want to win. You kind of you taking away that for that opportunity for that athlete to really learn something. If you really want to pay, Tony Russo was the best at it. He was the best. Think about it. I could hit. You know what I mean? That year in my leagues, I had a really good year in 2011. So many guys, when you hear about them making their debuts in the game of baseball, they are hitting. They go to the plate to hit for their first experience in the game. Tony Russo brought me in a pinch run. You see what I'm saying? So he
Yeah.
and I don't know if he did it on purpose. I feel like he did. He wanted to use my greatest attribute, and that was my running ability. He wanted to get me comfortable enough to be when I went in the game, a lot of times I went to defense first before I came to hit, because he knew I was gonna go and catch that ball. He knew that. He didn't know if I was gonna hit it all the time. You know what I mean? But obviously,
Right.
time went on, I got my hits. So it was like just being able to pay attention, man. I think as a coach, and I think guys like Dusty Baker and Maddox, I think those guys, Bobby Cox, they were the guys that really kind of showed us how to do that when it came to winning and having a good ball club. They paid attention to their players.
Okay. Lastly, I'm gonna do my best to figure out the best way to word this. Okay, I got it. So, um, for you, look, is there anything, you've for the past hour you've told me everything you've done in your career, and the things you've learned, how you've grown, mentally above all else. Any advice to anybody out there tuning in that is, I'll be honest, is there, for anybody that's struggling out there, just in daily life, what's the best advice that you can give them?
Oh man, that's a great question. Great question. Um, be true to yourself, man. Be true to yourself, dog. Like, take a step. What I'm having to do right now, like, I've been talking with a little bit of excitement. I feel my voice changing right now. It's like, sometimes you just got to take a breath. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to realize that, you know, I made a mistake, or, something happened that it was out of my control. Sometimes to get to the answer, you have to just understand who you are. Not know who you are, but understand who you are. Understand your characteristics. Understand what makes you happy, what makes you sad. And it takes work. You know what I mean? Like anything worth having, my mom tell me all the time, you gotta work at it, man. And a lot of my relationships in my life hasn't always been the best. You know what I mean? They haven't always been
Right.
tip top. But what I've seen in the good relationships that I do have with people is that the ones that care for you, they stick around. So don't worry about losing people. Don't worry about, you know what I'm saying, something coming up, this big job opportunity, and I don't want to mess it up by saying something wrong or doing something wrong. It's like, don't have that fear inside of your heart. Be yourself, understand who you are, set your standard. What is your standard? You know what I mean? What do you concrete stand on? What do you stand on? And I feel like as a human, you know what I'm saying? Not just as a country, but as a human, it might take some time to figure that out. It might take some battles. But I feel like as a human, I feel like you will live a whole lot better life, for yourself, for your kids, for your family, for your friends, for the people that's struggling. You'll be able to show them a way. You know what I mean? Something that they can use for their lives, in the future. I love people. I love communicating with people. I'm not gonna say I make all the best decisions all the time, but when I'm able to correct it, I really put myself in that position to say, you know what, I messed up. How can I fix this? So just be true to yourself. Love the Lord. I feel like that. You know what I'm saying? That higher power. Yeah, man, and really understand that you really have a unique power inside of you. Every last one of us, man, we have a uniqueness about ourselves that we can move mountains. We are strong. We're powerful. We just got to make sure that we learn who that person that we're talking about is, and that's you. You got to learn yourself. So, yeah, man, be yourself.
As a fellow struggler, that's something I really needed to hear. I'll tell you that right now. So I do definitely appreciate that.
No doubt, homie.
Um, Folks, we're going to wrap it up here on Roundabout Sports. I want to definitely thank Adron Chambers for joining us this evening. It has been absolute pleasure and a blessing for me. Folks, as always, we put at the end of the show the NAMI helpline. That is 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the largest grassroots mental health organization in the United States dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle with mental health issues or for the families of those who struggle as well. And of course, as always, we put at the end of the show the suicide and crisis lifeline. And for that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone out there. There is always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, who wants nothing but the absolute best for you. And we all struggle in this world. We all head down those forks, those paths, but they're not ones that have to be traveled alone. You are just a phone call or a text message away. And you could also be the listening ears and watchful eyes for somebody else who struggles. Once again, I want to thank Adron Chambers for being on. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, on X, on our YouTube channel, Interstate 70 Sports Media. We're also at interstate70sports.media. And next week, we plan on having Kent Sterling, radio host and sports fanatic from Indianapolis, on the show as we get close to the NFL season. But until then, folks, I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Karp. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in.
Amen.
Make your lives worth reading.
No doubt.
Good night, everybody.